Everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into a book that completely revolutionized how the world understands human intelligence, success, and happiness. If you have ever felt like your emotions are a runaway train, or if you have ever wondered why some of the smartest people you know, the straight-A students, the mathematical geniuses, the tech wizards, sometimes struggle to manage their careers, their relationships, or their personal lives, this video is the ultimate explainer. We are doing a massive, deep dive story breakdown of emotional intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ by Daniel Goleman. This book didn't just introduce a new buzzword into our vocabulary, it provided a scientific blueprint for how our hearts and minds interact. Goleman uses groundbreaking neuroscience and psychology to show us that our emotional literacy is actually the foundation for everything we achieve in life. Get comfortable, grab a warm drink, tune out all distractions, and let us discover why mastering your feelings is the ultimate superpower. Part 1. The Great Train Hijack of the Human Brain. Let us start our story with a terrifying medical case that sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie. Imagine a brilliant businessman named Elliot. He was successful, organized, and happily married. But Elliot developed a brain tumor. Surgeons successfully removed the tumor, saving his life. But during the operation, they had to cut a small amount of tissue in Elliot's prefrontal cortex, right behind his forehead. When Elliot recovered, his intelligence seemed completely intact. He could still solve complex mathematical equations, pass rigorous logic tests with flying colors, and recall intricate business details. His IQ was still in the top tier, but his life completely fell apart. Elliot could no longer make simple decisions. He would spend hours debating whether to use a blue pen or a black pen. He would lose his job because he spent the entire morning organizing his desk instead of attending client meetings. He made disastrous financial investments that bankrupted him, and his marriage ended in divorce. When neurologists studied Elliot, they discovered something shocking. The surgery had severed the connection between his logical brain and his emotional center. Elliot could still think perfectly, but he could no longer feel anything. He had zero emotional response to his situation. This case proved to scientists that emotions are not just irrational impulses that get in the way of logical thinking. Emotions are absolutely essential for rational thought. Without them, we are paralyzed. Goleman introduces us to the concept of our two minds, the rational mind, which thinks, and the emotional mind, which feels. For most of human history, we have celebrated the rational mind and dismissed the emotional mind as a dangerous relic of our animal past. But neuroscience shows us that the emotional mind is much faster and much older. It is our survival engine. Deep inside our brain lies a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The amygdala is our brain's security guard. It is constantly scanning the environment for danger. If it detects a threat, it instantly takes over the entire brain before the logical prefrontal cortex even realizes what is happening. Goleman calls this an emotional hijacking. Think about the last time you snapped at your partner, slammed a door in anger, or froze in terror during a presentation. That was not your logical mind making a choice. That was your amygdala hijacking your nervous system, pumping adrenaline into your blood, and steering your behavior based on ancient survival instincts. The goal of emotional intelligence is not to destroy the amygdala, but to learn how to build a strong, communicative bridge between our thinking brain and our feeling brain. Part 2. The true definition of emotional intelligence. Many people assume that emotional intelligence simply means being nice or always staying calm. But Goleman shatters this superficial view. Emotional intelligence is a sophisticated set of psychological skills divided into 5 distinct pillars. Let us explore each of these pillars through the lens of daily life. The first pillar is emotional self-awareness. This is the cornerstone of the entire philosophy. It is the ability to recognize a feeling as it happens. Think of how often you find yourself in a bad mood without knowing why. You might be snappy with your colleagues, impatient with your kids, or feeling a heavy weight in your chest. An emotionally intelligent person can step back and observe their own internal state. They can say, I am feeling anxious right now because of that email I received this morning. The moment you name an emotion, you immediately lessen its power over you. You go from being trapped inside the storm to watching the storm from a safe distance. The second pillar is managing emotions. This is what we do with our feelings once we become aware of them. It is the ability to soothe yourself, shake off rampant anxiety, gloom, or irritability. Goleman notes that anger is the hardest emotion to control because it feeds on itself. When you get angry, your brain finds reasons to justify your anger, creating a toxic spiral. Managing emotions means knowing how to interrupt that spiral through deep breathing, changing your physical environment, or reframing the situation in your mind. The third pillar is motivating oneself. Success requires delay of gratification. It requires the ability to push through boredom, frustration, and exhaustion to achieve a long-term goal. Goleman highlights a famous experiment known as the marshmallow test. Researchers placed a single marshmallow in front of a group of 4-year-old children. They told each child, "You can eat this marshmallow right now. Or, if you wait for 15 minutes while I step out of the room, you can have 2 marshmallows when I return." Some kids grabbed the marshmallow the second the adult left. Others resisted, covering their eyes, dancing around, or singing to distract themselves. The researchers tracked these children for decades. The 4-year-olds who had the emotional control to delay gratification grew into teenagers and adults who scored significantly higher on academic tests, had healthier weights, managed stress better, and enjoyed much higher career success. Self-motivation is the fuel that turns potential into reality. The fourth pillar is empathy. This is the ability to recognize emotions in other people. It is the ultimate relationship skill. Empathy requires us to tune in to nonverbal cues, the tone of a voice, the micro-expression on a face, the shift in someone's posture. Goleman explains that empathy is built on self-awareness. If you are deaf to your own feelings, you will be completely blind to the feelings of those around you. The fifth pillar is handling relationships. This is the art of managing the emotions of others. It includes leadership, teamwork, negotiation, and conflict resolution. The most socially skilled individuals can walk into a room filled with tension and naturally de-escalate the environment. They can guide a group toward harmony because they understand the invisible emotional currents flowing beneath the surface of human interactions. Part 3. The high cost of emotional blindness. What happens when a society lacks emotional intelligence? Goleman paints a stark picture of the consequences of emotional blindness. He points to rising rates of depression, anxiety, addiction, and violence among young people as direct symptoms of a culture that prioritizes academic grading while completely ignoring emotional literacy. When we fail to teach children how to process sadness, fear, and anger, they turn to destructive outlets. They numb their pain through substance abuse, isolate themselves behind screens, or express their internal frustration through aggression. Goleman argues that we are paying a massive societal price for our obsession with IQ. We screen people for their technical skills and intellectual capacity, but we unleash them into families, schools, and workplaces without giving them the basic tools required to coexist peacefully. Part 4. The emotional intelligence of workplaces. Let us take this concept into the corporate world. For generations, businesses operated under the assumption that work is strictly logical. Employees were expected to leave their emotions at the door. But Goleman's research reveals that emotional intelligence is the single greatest predictor of star performance in any organization. Imagine 2 corporate executives working at a major tech firm. Executive A has an astronomical IQ. He can code faster than anyone, design flawless systems, and predict market trends with mathematical accuracy. But he is emotionally inept. When his team makes a mistake, he publicly berates them. When a project fails, he denies any personal responsibility and blames his subordinates. His team lives in a constant state of fear and anxiety. Executive B has a good IQ, but she excels in emotional intelligence. When her team faces a crisis, she remains calm and reassuring, keeping their amygdalas from panicking. She listens to their ideas, provides constructive feedback, and takes full responsibility when things go wrong. Which executive will build a thriving, innovative company over the long haul? Executive B wins every single time. Goleman explains that anxiety and fear freeze the human brain. When employees are stressed or terrified of their boss, their prefrontal cortex shuts down, making creative thinking, problem-solving, and collaboration completely impossible. Emotional intelligence in leadership is not a luxury. It is a direct driver of corporate productivity and profit. Part 5. The biology of health and longevity. One of the most fascinating chapters in the book explores the medical link between our emotions and our physical bodies. Goleman takes us into the emerging field of psychoneuroimmunology, the the study of how our thoughts and feelings directly alter our immune system. When you live in a state of chronic stress, anger, or anxiety, your brain continuously signals your body to release stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. In short bursts, these hormones are life-saving. They help you run away from threats. But when these hormones remain in your bloodstream for weeks, months, or years, they act like a slow poison. They damage your blood vessels, weaken your heart, and actively suppress your immune system's ability to fight off infections, viruses, and diseases. Goleman shares data showing that patients who suffer from chronic hostility and anger are significantly more likely to experience heart attacks than those who manage their tempers. Conversely, patients who possess high emotional intelligence, who maintain strong networks of emotional support, and who practice optimism recover from surgeries much faster and have significantly higher survival rates when battling terminal illnesses. Your emotional state is a matter of physical life and death. Part 6. The Crucible of Intimate Relationships. Relationships are the ultimate testing ground for our emotional skills. Goleman dives deep into marital dynamics to explain why so many relationships collapse under the weight of emotional illiteracy. He introduces two terms that every couple needs to understand: criticism and stonewalling. When a conflict arises in a relationship, an emotionally untrained person will often resort to global criticism. Instead of addressing a specific behavior, they attack their partner's character. They say, "You are completely selfish and you always forget about me." This character attack triggers an immediate defensive reaction from the partner's amygdala. As the argument escalates, the emotional intensity reaches a point that Goleman calls flooding. Flooding occurs when the body is so overwhelmed by anger and fear that the heart rate spikes above 100 beats per minute. At this stage, rational communication is completely impossible. The brain is screaming for survival. To protect themselves from flooding, many individuals, especially men, who are biologically more susceptible to emotional flooding than women, will engage in stonewalling. They withdraw from the conversation entirely. They look away, cross their arms, freeze, and remain completely silent. While the stonewaller thinks they are keeping the peace, their silence sends a devastating message of contempt to their partner. Goleman explains that couples who survive do not avoid arguments. Instead, they know how to fight with emotional intelligence. They use specific behavioral complaints rather than character attacks. And most importantly, when they feel themselves flooding, they take a conscious 20-minute break to let their bodies calm down before resuming the discussion. Part 7. The Window of Childhood Opportunity. How do we build an emotionally intelligent human being? Goleman insists that the emotional brain develops during childhood and adolescence. This means that parents and educators hold a massive responsibility. Children learn emotional intelligence by watching how their parents handle stress, conflict, and disappointment. Goleman identifies several common parenting styles that fail to build these vital skills. Some parents act like emotional dismissers. When their child is sad or scared, they say, "Stop crying, it is not a big deal," or smile, "Everything is fine." This teaches the child that their internal feelings are wrong or dangerous, leading to emotional confusion. Other parents are completely permissive. They validate the child's emotion, but fail to set boundaries on behavior. If the child throws a temper tantrum and smashes a toy, the permissive parent says, "Oh, I understand you are angry," without teaching the child how to regulate that anger safely. Emotionally intelligent parenting requires emotion coaching. It means validating the child's feeling while guiding their behavior. A parent might say, "I can see you are incredibly angry that your sister took your toy. It is okay to feel angry, but it is not okay to hit her. Let us talk about what you can do instead." This simple interaction teaches the child how to recognize their emotion, label it, and choose a constructive response instead of acting on a raw impulse. Part 8. The School of Emotional Literacy. Goleman did not just want his book to be an academic critique. He wanted it to be a call to action. He advocates for a massive overhaul of our education systems through the implementation of social and emotional learning programs. Imagine a school where children are taught how to resolve playground conflicts through active listening, how to identify their triggers for anxiety, and how to practice mindfulness before a stressful test. This is not a utopian fantasy. Goleman shares data from schools that implemented these programs, proving that when children are taught emotional literacy, their academic test scores actually increase, bullying drops significantly, and classroom behavior dramatically improves. When you teach a child how to calm their own nervous system, you clear the mental space required for their logical brain to learn history, science, and languages. Emotional education is the catalyst for intellectual education. Part 9. The plasticity of the human heart. As we approach the final chapters of our story, Goleman leaves us with a message of profound hope. For decades, psychologists believed that our emotional traits were fixed by our genetics. People would say, "I am just a naturally anxious person," or "I have a short temper, and there is nothing I can do about it." But the discovery of neuroplasticity has completely disproved this fatalistic view. Your brain is not a hardwired computer. It is a living, adaptable muscle. Every time you choose to take a deep breath instead of shouting, every time you pause to identify a feeling, and every time you practice empathy with a difficult colleague, you are physically rewiring your neural pathways. You can develop emotional intelligence at any stage of your life. It requires intentional practice, patience, and compassion for yourself as you undo decades of unconscious programming. The habits of your past do not have to dictate the architecture of your future brain. The ultimate takeaway. Let us bring this entire journey home to you. Look at your life right now. Your technical knowledge, your resume, and your IQ might get you through the door of your career. They might help you land the job or pass the exam, but it is your emotional intelligence that will determine whether you stay in that job, whether you climb to leadership, whether your marriage thrives, and whether you raise happy, resilient children. Your emotional intelligence determines the actual quality of your everyday lived experience. Stop letting your ancient amygdala run your modern life from the background. Wake up to your feelings. Name them. Manage them. Listen to the emotional landscape of the people around you. Step into a life of true consciousness and self-mastery. What is one area of your life where your emotions have been taking the driver's seat? Are you ready to start building your emotional intelligence muscle today? Let me know your thoughts and commitments in the comments down below. If this deep dive summary unlocked a new understanding of your mind and heart, show some love by hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another transformative book breakdown, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Stay aware, stay conscious, master your feelings, and I will see you in the next video.